Alright, this video is going to be kind of split up into a couple different chunks, being that it's somewhat complex. And so if you feel like I'm ranting on, I am going to try to leave bookmarks in this video for you, so you don't feel a little overwhelmed. We're just going to go over some of the custom attributes, maybe some hidden controllers you haven't seen before. Depending on how you receive this character, that way it's a little bit easier for you to work through it and then just hurry up and get to animating, am I right? First of all, we're going to start with the bottom. This is the master control right here. It has three extra little attributes for visibility. If I turn off the first two, I'm going to turn them on. And then I'm going to turn on the skeleton right here. The first one right here, this is just a simple offset controller. That's exactly what it sounds like. Maybe you have a position on the main controller. Maybe you've already figured out the scale. You want to go ahead and place this wherever you want within your scene you want to get started. Completely allowed to do that. This little mini icon right in the middle, this is actually controlling the root bone independently at that. The whole point in that, mainly for gameplay animators, when you are playing a character within your scene, you're moving your controller around. The main thing that actually gets moved is this root. This root controls the entire chain. Skeleton, if I turn off the geometry, this root is what's controlling the main movement of this entire character. And so all those animations and stuff, they're kind of centered on top of this. And if you are working with any kind of gameplay animation and your stuff is actually happening off center of world origin, you can actually move this root under it, kind of center it, maybe have the center of gravity, or try to get it as close as possible so that when you put it in engine, it doesn't look too far off. Again, more gameplay stuff. I can explain it a little bit better if we had more time for that, but I'm just going to be talking about this rig. And then for the main controller, I'm also going to turn on. You'll see these other controllers. I'm kind of turning on and off right here. These are the hair controllers. I have them turned off by default because if I were to turn them all on, you'll see all these FK chains just coming out of the woodworks. It can get a little noisy for some people, so you can have them turned on and off. Completely up to you. And they are exactly what I say. They're just FK chains. Very simple, kind of moving down the line and controlled there. And then we'll get into the pros and cons of that down the line when I get to the head. But for the sake of this demo, I am going to just go ahead and have these turned off. Then I'm going to select that main controller, and then I'll actually turn all of these off. Again, for this first little bookmark, we're going to go over actually just the legs and the arms, since they both share a lot of their attributes. You have your very simple controllers for translation, rotation, scale. This is an IK right now. And there are some stuff you may already recognize from other rigs you've used before. You got your simple ball roll, got your toe up and down. You can do some stuff with that. And then your independent slider for toes. You got your toe bank, or your entire foot can bang side to side. And then you can actually control that pivot from the hill if you just wanted to with these attributes. I am going to go ahead and slide all the way down here. And I do want you to know that there are some secondary controls on this foot. If I turn this on, it's labeled IK foot control. And you have all those options also afforded to you with these independent controls if you want to manually actually control them using them instead of the attribute editor. Again, you have those afforded to you. You can turn those on and off depending on how chaotic it is for you. I'm going to go back up here. Yeah, like I said, this can be an IK or FK. We can go back and forth between that. Under that, we do have stretch already enabled. You don't necessarily have to. I can turn it off and on. And I'll go ahead and show you what that does. Okay, we'll pull that foot down, and it'll try to maintain its volume all the way down. You got this nice little stretch going on here. And this can be some good opportunity for some tune stuff. Right now it doesn't look too cool because it's just a linear pull right now. But underneath that stretch, I do want you to know you can control that max stretch distance on how much that foot controller is like controlling that stretching on that, which is really good to kind of keep yourself organized if you kind of wanted to do it all through the editor right here, as well as the minimum distance. I also wanted to acknowledge these upper and lower stretches. All the twist controls, they're not on right now. I actually will go ahead and turn those twist controls on, as well as some other stuff real quick. I want you to see what's happening under the woodwork of all this. Let me go ahead. Oh, we'll also turn on those hips just to give you a whole demonstration. Go ahead, that upper and lower stretch. I'm gonna go. You see how I can actually control just how much of the upper body is getting, or not upper body, upper part of that knee is getting stretched, or maybe that lower part. Actually control just how much is being affected there. And on top of that, let me just pull this knee extremely far out. We have this lock right here, and you see this is just the locking the knee right to that primary low control. It's going to try to find wherever this pivot is located. If I move it down here and over here, if I select that lock again, it's going to try to find it, which is actually pretty freaking cool. Because if I also, will turn this off, actually turn it a little bit to make this next controller a little bit more obvious. Yeah, this IK roll right here. And all this is doing is just rolling that entire little chain on that little pivot from that foot to the hip. You see it's kind of roll axis right there. Pretty cool control. If you want to do some stuff with it, it is afforded to you. The next thing I did want to show you, let me go ahead and put this back. While it's stretched out, you notice that it's trying to maintain its volume. It's not, when you stretch like a rubber band across right in the middle, usually that middle part is going to get a little bit smaller. If you wanted to like show off that realism, there is a control right here that can actually give you that option called the global volume. And you can see right here, if I turn that on, you'll see it kind of stretches like a rubber band and it gets smaller in the middle. There are plenty of uses for this as well, and I wanted to give you that opportunity to use that as well. Here's your, right under that, you got your roundness auto. Right now it's off. If I were to turn it on, you don't see a whole lot happening. Actually, let me go ahead and zero this out. And you're like, oh my God, now I see something happening real quick right here. Let me make sure everything else is turned off just so it doesn't kind of get in the way of this. So roundness. You immediately see right there. So now we don't have that anatomically correct like lower knee and then upper thigh right there. If you want to do, once again, more cartoony stuff, we can round this out and get some pretty good results right there. And like I said, you see these controllers moving automatically with it. You still have complete control over these controllers. Right now we're in world. I'm going to shift control, right mouse click, and then we're going to go to object. Way I can move along that controller's axis to have a little bit more fidelity how these things are moving. You can get some pretty good results out of that, like so. And then, like I said, you totally don't have to. We can do more realistic animation, and then we can turn that auto off. I do want to mention though, while we have that roundness turned off, we can kind of do some other stuff. We can maintain the length of the entire foot. It'll try to measure the distance and try to do a mathematical correction of that if you want to get into that. And we can also control the angle of how much is being affected by that. It's very minimum, or we can get pretty wonky and start really controlling just how this curve starts looking. So pretty cool options to play around with. I'll leave that up to you on how you want to tackle that. Turn off the skeleton, and it is getting a little chaotic. You understand how twist controls works and all that. It just gives you more control for good posing, or if you're really trying to animate some cartoony stuff, you have all those options afforded to you. I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the visibility to those right there. The arm is no different. I'll go ahead and they have the same exact stuff. You have your stretching, you have your IK roll, you have your global volume. One thing I did not mention, see if remind myself it's in this, I did skip this section. So tangents, let me go ahead and turn these back on. Tangents, you can control all that movement and stuff you were doing up here. These you can actually do it through your attribute editor as well. You see how which controller's kind of doing all that motion right here. It's these other squares, which are the secondary bendy controls right here. So these that are inside these main squares. But yeah, you can totally kind of get more fidelity out of that right there. Maybe you're crunching down, maybe that all that thigh flesh is moving down when it lands. It gives kind of nice little idea of realism. But I did want to mention that you do have control over this as well within your attribute editor. Go ahead, turn that off, focus right back on the arm again. Because once also with you don't have to turn them on to see it. You could see how these kind of move up and down. So you can get some pretty cool results out of that. And then on this hand, it does have an extra FK chain going up it, like so. Control the fins on that. Like I said, it's just a simple FK chain like the fingers. Like so. And I mean, this arm can go FK, IK. We have all those attributes afforded to us as well. We can do the IK, do all that. And then, yeah, that should be all the hidden controllers for the arms and the legs. And then, all right, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the torso. After here, okay. So starting with this cog right here, there is a controller hidden under it. Think of this as a secondary cog. Maybe you have animation on the main one and you don't want to necessarily add another animation layer, or you don't want to do any offsetting there. You can create there's a whole new controller is what I'm trying to say, right up under it. And it has all the same control and fidelity as the cog. You see how everything under it is being affected. You can do all that. Again, if you don't need it, you don't need to use it, so I can turn it back off. Right beside it is the hip swinger. A lot of you animators already know what that is. It's just an independent pelvis, little hip controller. Maybe really good for your models or any other animation where you need more control with your hips, maybe for walking or anything else like that. Going up the chain, you have a very simple spine FK chain, like so, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's just a simple, everything up this chain is being controlled by what's under it, by that parent. From there, then moving up that torso, we'll go ahead and focus on that neck and head. So this is the neck controller right here. And then, like I said, all these hairs pieces, they're just simple FK chains. So when I move the hair or head or the neck, I'm talking about the neck specifically. When I move that neck, you'll see how everything follows with it. Now, this is a good idea to also introduce a potential pathway to getting into games, per se. You can easily take this character into something like Unreal, create what's called physics bodies, and then put a simulation on those bodies and have the hair maybe kind of interact with the shoulder, the chest, other parts of the neck, other parts of the hair, and have it start to do some realistic and some really cool stuff. What's nice about that is when you put this into, say, a game engine, you can have that templated out. And so from there on, you can just focus on the character animation, export it into, say, Unreal Engine, have the simulation run that you've already set up, and then just see how the hair interacts. That's one way. Another way, you can do the nice, hard, once you're done with all the acting and all that, one by one, you can focus on getting that hair just right and playing with that, getting your practice in on the good old pendulum swings, the overlapping animation, the whips. That completely up to you. And again, there also are scripts available. I have Overlapper, I have LM Spring, and then a few other stuff as well. On things I use for any kind of chain or hair, tail, anything like that. Again, completely up to you. Again, you have that head, neck, like so, moving stuff around. I'm going to go ahead and zero out the rotations there. You'll see certain clumps of hair follow certain parts that are assigned to it, and once again, I specifically broke them apart based on color. To the chest, the head, the neck. I actually will leave those on just to remind you that those colors do match the controller that's afforded to the visibility. So, yeah. That is for the head right there. Going up the head, obviously, we have another set of stuff. This is the ears FK chain. It's just exactly what it sounds like. It's just an FK chain as well. You can do some really cool overlapping animation with that. And we could also, we got the nose, and I do want to push over to the eyes. This character has 3 eyes, like so. We'll go into world. Once again, Control Shift, right mouse click. And I'm moving all that stuff around, like so. And you'll see, as I'm moving, you may have barely noticed it. As I'm moving that around, you see how the upper and lower eyelid is kind of moving along with it. It's kind of giving that fleshy follow along feel. When I look at these attributes right here, I'll start from the top. You have your main ones that you already know about. You have these rotational offsets. Now, if I add any kind of movement to these controllers right here, I can go to this rotational offset, maybe X. I can still give it another rotation on top of that. You can use these for multiple situations. I won't tell you how to animate. I'm going down the chain right here. We get into this category called fleshy. The fleshy, I'm gonna go ahead and turn on all the controllers associated with this. The fleshy is all the extra movement that is given when I animate that eye. So you see how those controllers in there are following along with how the eye moves. Maybe this is good enough for you. Maybe this is not enough for you. Maybe you want to add just a little bit more. I'm going to rotate this up just a little bit. It's really sensitive right there. Then now we got a lot more movement. How the eye is moving with them. Maybe that's way too much for you. And we could lower it down. Maybe you don't want any at all. And that's completely fine. You don't need to have those eyes follows with. Now it's just that eye controller moving. And nothing's following with it. And maybe you want to get in there by hand. Maybe you want to select these and have that full control by yourself. You're totally allowed to do so. And then you have these secondary controllers right here that kind of control the main, I would say the upper 3. You can use these as somewhat of a blink. I did not intend to have this animated as a blink, but you could totally do so. I'll go ahead and show you the geometry for this right here. It's not exactly high poly, but you can get something out of it. I won't discard you and tell you not to. But you do have that option afforded to you if you wanted. Um, housing all these controllers right here is this main control right here. You can control kind of this placement of where this eye is. You can maybe play with proportions and get some weird like psycho S kind of sizes and really kind of play with that. Or you can do some rotational offset and get some weird stuff going, which is awesome. Again, I'm giving you this option just so you can play around. You could do whatever you want. Go ahead and turn all of these off right here if you want to reduce that clutter. And then you have the same option for the other side. Not so for the middle. The middle, you only have your rotations and stuff. Because you can think of that center eye, think of it more like just a ruby in the middle. You can totally control how this works. You can maybe just move in and out and do some really cool stuff there. Maybe control scale of that and have it take over. Completely up to you. It's totally up to you. And then right here, you do also have a jaw. Around, dude does its all stuff right there. Maybe not completely close it. We don't want the tooth to puncture that lower jaw. And yeah, and that's it for the main kind of torso moving up the chain. And we've already talked about the arms and the legs. The next little piece I want to get into are these wings. Okay, for these wings, what I'm actually going to start with is the kind of attaching part that's going to these little upper shoulder, or kind of, not upper shoulder, maybe upper arm. You see when I move the arm around, you see how this little attached part of this wing is being affected. Couple different things. I want to show you this little master control right here that controls either the visibility of some attributes and some of the other things you can do with it. Now this wing attach is really just a NURB surface. It's like I'll actually turn it on for you. Turn off geometry. I'll turn this surface on. It's just a rectangle that has a couple of attributes on it. Like for example, a sine wave. I'm going to turn this amplitude on and you see how it's affecting. How this NURB surface is being affected like so. And the main part you're going to be animating could be this sign offset. You see you're getting some weird warpy stuff right here. That may be too much. Let's lower to something like 0.02. Oh yeah. And you see this can honestly feel like wind going through it. Now if we turn this back on, you see how it's affecting. We're getting some nice little turbulent noise running through that those fleshy bits. So you can really think of the ideas on how it can affect the overall wing. Now you don't just have to animate through this. I'm going to turn this off. I'm actually turning that NURB surface off. You could do this through the controllers like so. You have your main controllers. It's these solid cube controllers that are doing everything. Or you can do some more, have more finite control. On top of that, we can do that. We control the scale. Maybe there's like a boo-boo. Something heard it. Now it's freaking wow, wow, wow. No? Okay. Yeah, those are options afforded to you right there. Moving up, think of these wings as like extra arms. So you have a main controller right here. Currently these arms are in FK, so if I move this main controller, everything will move with it, like so. If I were to put these arms in, say, IK, I'm going to do this side only. Let's put this to IK. Now when I move this main control, see, FK is moving, but the IK is not, which is intended. Going up this chain, you have, think of these as shoulders, like so. Exactly what you would think of what a shoulder is, like so. And we're in IK mode on this side, so the shoulder is actually going to be translated right here. And I know I said these are shoulders right here, but think of these lower kind of attachment wings as someone, you can kind of organize the entire thing like so. So if I said these were shoulders, think of these as like the clavicle of the entire arm. I can do some pretty cool stuff with that. So yeah, you have full control over that. Going down this chain right here, again, you have some little bits of geometry that's kind of hanging off here. Once again, another nice little FK chain. We have this elbow. Control all that. You see how when I move that elbow, this also part of this shoulder attach is also moving with it. So let's say I put this into a position that may not be too favorable on how this is stretching. Once again, you can go here and you can adjust how that shape is. Maybe you can make it look a little bit better, more realistic. However you have something that works for you a little bit better, like so. Yeah, you have the elbow right here. Then you have, think of this as the wrist. It's kind of controlling all this. All these, and then all these right here, think of these as fingers. These are simple FK chains that are kind of running down when you're moving. How these work right here, like so. You have full control over how these work. And now with this, I did allow you to keep scale on so you can do some pretty cool stuff. Maybe have these really grow out and do some really cool things there. But yeah, like I said, these are simple FK chains, and so it should be fairly simple for you to work with and do some really cool stuff from there. Let me fix that rotation on that shoulder. And then let's say IK mode. What are your options afforded to you there? Again, I'm going to select that wrist. Same thing as like on your arm or your foot. I can do all the stuff there and move it like I would an arm, like so. And then once again, these are some attributes you already seen before, the stretching, and then I can control how that stretch works. And then I do have that IK roll again. It may not be as high fidelity as the roll there, but you could probably get this into certain positions and then follow up with fixing the posing from there. Again, you can do this however you want to do. Yeah, and then I guess last but not least, you have this tail. It is a simple FK chain as well. For there, I'm not going to re-explain once again how an FK chain works. But overall, that should be everything for this rig. It can be seen as very complicated, but that's not the case because I've mentioned FK chains so many times throughout this video. So think of it more as it's a lot. If you learn how to prioritize how you animate this character, it will definitely be a lot more of a breeze. When you realize that it's fairly simple, it's just you're going to be iterating this quite a few times to get this to where you want to go. But yeah, I'm looking forward to some of the animations that come out of this for y'all, and thank you for downloading the rig.